Okay, so I'm just going to introduce people for the purposes of Dr. Pran. This is Charlie Bloomer, who spoke about sustainability and food miles. Tyra Whelan is a diabetes educator, pharmacist, and woman living with type 1. You know Tracy.
I do.
And Melissa Luxmore, who's a naturopath and mum of a child with quite severe epilepsy, and also who's been managed with a ketogenic diet. And I'm Liz Fraser, and I'm a GP. And this panel, with which we're going to wrap up, is about creating change. And there's two questions that I'm going to put to the panel, and I'm going to ask you to give brief answers to. The first question is, what do you say to unhelpful friends, co-workers, family who give you a hard time when you chow into a steak rather than eat pizza and ice cream with them? The second question is, what are we all doing to try and create change? So the positive thing, and you're probably all going to be doing something different. So what we might do is start with Dr. Pran, and we might do one question at a time. So the first question is, what do you say to your unhelpful friends, colleagues, or family? And Dr. Pran, one of the questions that I had for you specifically was, how have you managed your work as a medical specialist in this field when there is so much conservatism amongst our colleagues?
It's a great question, Liz. I've been very lucky. I work with two amazing dietitians in Tom and Jessica Turton. They're part of your speakers there, obviously. And I mean, I've just been able to build a phenomenal team around me with Jessica and Tom's help. And I do understand that healthcare professionals are somewhat we're not trained down a nutritional pathway, and very few of us understand this paradigm very well. So essentially what I'm trying to do is build a team with experts in their fields, and I've been very lucky from that perspective with these guys. So with regards to co-workers, well, it is difficult, and I guess I am somewhat of a pariah amongst maybe some of my colleagues, but they're starting to see merits in what's occurring. And I think the evidence has been quite telling as every day that goes past, there is new systematic reviews, there's randomized control trials, which all paint the low carbohydrate diet in a very positive light. And of course, with these large bodies, such as the American College of Cardiology and so forth, you know, with their latest changes, I think it's all changing, hopefully for the better, but it is a struggle.
I'm Charlie, and I'm perhaps fortunate that most of the people I know are similarly minded, who were able to join me for a recent birthday. We enjoyed a beef roast, delicious. And I also think that it's very important to let people know that you buy real food from farmers' outlets and shops, and that this is a way to support better care for the land and the farmers who enjoy growing good food. So perhaps I'll pass on to Tara.
I think for me, I'm at this stage far beyond anyone else's opinion affecting the way that I'm going to treat my body. And so it is a big topic in my clinic room about particularly family gatherings and what other family members might think if you're, say, for example, not partaking in birthday cake eating or things like that. And it really comes down to your, I guess, inner priorities. And for me, an uncomfortable moment is worth a lifetime of health. And sometimes it does get a little bit uncomfortable, particularly when you're saying no. But in my life, everybody knows the way I eat because it is part of who I am. And I think when you have a chronic condition such as type 1 diabetes, you almost have an answer each time, which is, you know, I'm sorry, it's not good for my blood sugar, and that's it, because a lot of people aren't going to argue with that, because a lot of people don't understand type 1 in the general population. So it is very much, I don't allow anyone's opinion to actually affect my body. And then if I say, oh, well, stuff it, I'm going to join in for that sake, then of course, you know, I'm paying for that for up to 12 to 24 hours later with raging blood sugars that I just can't get under control. So for me, it's just not worth it. And even to the point where I always take the opportunity in the right environment to actually educate. So if someone asks me about why I'm eating this or not that, I've just moved into a new neighbourhood, and I went to a barbecue and I took my own keto bread for the sausage sizzle and my own sausages that were carb free, and it sparked a conversation. And the next minute I was invited to my neighbour's place, and I took a whole bunch of low carb treats, and we had a discussion over a glass of wine about keto. And now they're actually looking at going down that journey. And likewise, my mother-in-law is doing extremely well on a low carb diet, and has reversed her type early stage of insulin resistance as well. So education can then impart some really positive things as well.
I mean, as everybody knows, I'm very short of words, so I tend to just talk through people if they don't like me, and that's fine. And I do just continue talking, and I just believe the right people will hear me when they need to. But and I guess that's myself. I don't really let people push me around. But as a mother of a type 1 diabetic, when we were first thrown into the medical world, I did find it very, very challenging because I didn't really know any better, and people were throwing very big words at me. So now when I am faced with specialists and people that I don't know, I do my own research before I go in, and I go in ready to be able to stand there and stand up in front of these people, because this is my child, this is her life, and I want them to either work with me, and if they're not, then I go find somebody else. But as a health coach, I do try to teach people to understand their own boundaries. That was the dead end I spoke about yesterday. Know where you're comfortable, know where your boundaries are, and know when you're going to stop. If you're going to a party and you're in a situation where you still feel that you want to partake, know whether you're going to have a limit of 1 or 2 or none. And think of little things that you can say to someone. No, thank you, I don't really like that. No, thank you, that's not going to help me. Type 1 diabetes, it is very easy to say that's not very good for my blood sugars. Most people know that I'm always doing something weird. And so they just say to me, is this weird enough for you? We're not going to eat it. And I joke with them, but I'll say, no, thank you, that's fine. And after a while, you do get it becomes very easy to say no. And like Tara said, it's much better for me to say no. I'm sorry, it's my body, it's my health. And I put myself first when it comes to that. So, yeah.
I have similar experiences. I was actually very, very ill until I was about 36. I had a high sugar diet. I had no energy. I couldn't work, and did the GAPS diet and got my whole life back. And now I have non-negotiables, and those non-negotiables are: I don't eat gluten, full stop. I don't eat preservative 220s, full stop. I will choose carbohydrates with balance in mind. And a lot of people know me pretty well by now. I teach my clients to reframe the way they think about the foods that aren't good for them. So instead of saying, I can't have that, it's, no, I actually don't want that. I don't like that. And eventually you talk yourself into it anyway, to the fact that you don't like that or you don't want that. And people, most people who know me know that I really don't care what people think. So I don't tend to get caught up with that sort of thing, but I do teach people to reframe the way that they decline things. You know, forget about saying, I can't have that. That suggests that you really, really want it, when in fact your body does not really, really want it. So reframe the way that you say it.
Mind over matter.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. So we've been talking about, I guess, person. Oh, Charlie would like to add one thing, yes.
Having lived on more carbohydrate diet in a previous life, it resulted in some ill health for me. And going to the doctor recently, who's keen on cholesterol tests, they are very scary when the results come back. And the doctors are fixated. But you might die. Don't you want to reduce the chances of that? And it is scary. And I think people have to learn that there is a different story now being told.
Yeah.
And I alluded to that in the work of the Sugar Association, who hijacked the science to promote sugar and low fat. And we should all be highly cognizant of that in the low carb community.
Yeah, so being well informed, and that's something which I've tried to emphasise throughout this conference. Be well informed, make your own choices, be responsible for your choices. So we've been talking about personal change, what we've all experienced, and we're all on a journey with that, and we'll all continue to change. I guess one of the reasons why Tracy and I set up Low Carb Canberra was to try and facilitate community change, so change on a broader scale, and we're all doing our part in that in different ways. So that's what I'd like to have a little discussion about now. And so this conference is part of that. Me personally, one of the things I'm doing is trying to reach GPs, and again, I'm just going to show off for a moment. In a current edition of Australian Doctor, I have an article, I'm the co-author of an article on, for GPs, how to reverse type 2 diabetes. And it's a brief review of the evidence, fully referenced, got published on September 16. And what's good about that is Australian Doctor reaches thousands of GPs. Whether they'll take any notice of it or not,
It's in their face.
It's there. And one of the things that I would like to start working on is with Rod Taylor from Low Carb Down Under to put together some kind of webinar like this, but by doctors for doctors. Our low carb conference this weekend has been pitched at the community. It's been important to have doctors involved, but our audience, we think, are largely people in the community, and what we're trying to do is help give those people information, inspiration, community and support to help them make the change in their personal life. It's that revolution from below. So Dr. Pran, you have an internet presence. Perhaps you could tell us about what you're doing to help build the revolution, I guess.
Thanks, Liz. Look, Liz, with regards to what I do, what works quite elegantly when we work through the Centre of Gastrointestinal Health, which is what I've set up. A lot of people that struggle with carbohydrate-based diets will seek you out anyway. 90% of 75 to 90%, it's difficult to know exactly the figure, but it's a very high figure of people with gastrointestinal complaints, essentially suffering irritable bowel, of which 90 to 99% of it is dietary. So essentially these people are becoming intolerant of carbohydrates, and they seek you out, whether it's at a young age or an elderly age. So I tend to see a lot of irritable bowel, which I think is a carbohydrate intolerant state, both constipation, diarrhea, bloating, all of this sort of things. Additionally, I tend to see a lot of reflux, which I think is multi-system or multi-layered, but essentially it is the thinning of the diaphragm muscle, a sarcopenia, in addition to a fermentated method of digestion. So these people seek us out, and in conjunction with what we do with Jessica and Tom, we implement low carbohydrate diets for these people if they're willing. Of course, we don't force anyone, but most people aren't. Most people would prefer a dietary or a lifestyle-based approach compared to a drug-based approach. So that's one way we're doing it in the community, is that they're seeking gastroenterological support. And I think metabolic illness manifests itself through irritable bowel and reflux. That's my belief. It's starting to become cemented the longer I do this. In terms of my internet presence, I tend to just do little blogs on Facebook and Instagram. I found Instagram to be quite a good medium. It's a very visual medium, and you can kind of get the word across. I don't tend to take myself seriously. A lot of sort of gag slides and meme slides, but it's a way to engage people, and I think the community is ready to do that and learn and just getting my perspective across. And I think we have to be very grateful to people like Gary Fetke and Belinda Fetke. And Gary, what he's been through certainly paved the way for doctors like me to be able to have a voice with confidence.
Yeah. Wonderful, Graham. Love it.
I think how we're addressing the issue is just describing the picture of industrial food production and how it is all presented so conveniently for people who are short of time and resources. One of the things at home we've had a few experiences of are cooking afternoons, where friends come around to our kitchen and we show them how to make proper food again, using fresh fruit and veg and meat. This seems to have been something that's lost over the last few years. And the other way, I think, is that just showing people that there are alternatives. And my suggestions are just to buy food from farmers markets or direct food outlets for farmers' produce, or even grow it in your backyard or on your balcony, so that you can have fresh food that's immediately to hand and doesn't take a lot of processing, but is ready to eat or even eat raw if it's the beans off the vine. And I think by letting people know that eating good food is good for your health, good for the environment, good for society, I think that there is a large segment of our community that is ready to take these possibilities on board. Thank you.
I think for me, part of the community, again, is just coming back to educating. And look, everybody on the planet has an opinion about food. We all do it. We do it many times a day. Some of us only once, and some of us only every 3 days, but we all eat. So everyone has an opinion. And when you start bringing up a different opinion about food, it always sparks conversation. So I feel like a lot of the time it is an opportunity to build your community by opening those conversations, finding out what people's opinions are. And a lot of time people's opinions, particularly of differing views of food, such as low carb or keto, they can be quite polarizing views, and they are sensationalized through social media. There's lots of bad information out there. A lot of people trying to capitalize on keto, putting out really bad products. So I do take it as an opportunity to say, you know what, do you want to hear some of the science? And I'll give you my opinion. And then it's a bit of a back and forth, and it does build that community. And just sort of building on, you know, having friends over and cooking, it's something I do. So if I have my family over, they know they're going to get a low carb meal. They know they're not going to get potato. They're not going to get bread. So, you know, and showing them how yummy food can be at the same time is also part of building that community.
So how I'm helping is, it's a dual thing. I talk, well, I just keep talking. I post on my Facebook page. I tell people, especially about type 1 diabetes and sugars and hidden things that are in food, because I have a visual representation with a CGM on my daughter. And I just keep talking because I hope that I can reach mums, people my age, to make changes, to help their children, etc. But as a health coach, I decided early on in my health coaching that I wasn't going to just continue preaching about low carb, high fat, or keto or carnivore. I mean, I'm qualified to talk with all of those, so I can work alongside specialists and help their patients. But I decided that I'm here for the people that have hit rock bottom. They've tried everything, and they need somebody with them. Whether it be emotional support, spiritual support, mental support, physical support throughout their journey, whether they've been diagnosed with someone or they're just simply wanting to change over their diet to a more healthy approach. I have worked alongside Tara with a few clients, and I have found my niche, and I do believe that it's a very neglected part, not on anybody's part. It's a hard part to deal with. Let's face it, our emotions are scary, and many of us have a very negative emotional ties with ourselves and our food. And that's where I've decided to go as a coach. And all these beautiful people that you have learned from here, I work closely and talk closely with all of them about all their fields, so I can help anybody that they feel may need me as a support within their within their bubble of people that they want to work with. So that's where I've decided to head with my coaching, is in those dark places where we find a lot of people. So yeah.
I think I'm very fortunate to be working with people on a daily basis as a naturopath. I've concentrated on nutritional healing for probably the last 15 years and tried lots of different therapeutic diets for myself and therapeutic diets on my kids and my clients. And I guess one of the ways that I bring it to community is, and I try to get other people to do this too, if you are going to something, say a party or a barbecue, or going to a work morning tea where there's cake, take something that you can eat, but take something that you can share with everybody else. Start the conversation, let them see that these foods are perfectly delicious, perfectly nutritious, and they can actually eat healthy and still enjoy themselves. Taking something to these situations is a way that I teach community, speaking to patients about it. I mean, one of the simple things that I do with a new patient who's reluctant to change their diet is I change their breakfast. I put them on eggs, and every single time those people come back and say, I feel amazing. And all I did was change the breakfast. That's just one thing. And then we go to the next step. So if you're looking to change the way people look at the way that you eat or educate people around you, is just get them to change one thing and see how they feel. And I usually start with breakfast. Get rid of the sugary breakfast. Eat some eggs or some bacon or a piece of fish, whatever the hell you want to eat that's not sweet, and you'll feel so much better. But take something, bring something to the table, start a conversation. Mm-hmm.
So there's an awful lot of work to be done at many levels, personal, within our professional lives, and also at governmental council levels, Australian dietary guidelines, the shambles thereof, etc., etc.
Yeah.
And I think we're all pretty much exhausted by 2 fairly intense days. I think Charlie's just stuck up with fingers. You really want to say something?
Yes, just picking up one of the questions from our viewers. A suggested or favourite cookbooks to implement changes. And what comes to my mind are the books by Elizabeth David, French provincial cooking, 1950s, discovering Mediterranean fruit and vegetables, and this is what food is about.
Picking up on the French paradox that they weren't afraid of butter and cream. And, yeah. And there's books like A Fat Lot of Good and the What the Fat Book. No shortage of resources out there.
Maria Emmerich online, she's got a lot of online keto. Maria Emmerich, she is American. She's got a lot of online forums that you can go on. You can print things off, you can download, but she's got a lot of her books now on, is it downloadable? What do you call it? Audible? No, not Audible. You can actually download them onto your computer, but you buy the
like an ebook.
An ebook. I will never be helping anybody with internet and electrical stuff. I'm telling you that. So you can download it as an ebook. So there's lots of people now converting their recipe books into ebooks. Have a look on, Pete does a lot of stuff on Amazon. We can look at Amazon, but we are in Australia getting a lot of cookbooks that are from overseas. All you have to do is type in keto low carb and you're going to come up with heaps of books. But I know Pete Evans has a nice low carb book. It is a bit, if you're not a real cook yet, probably not the Pete Evans ones, but seriously, ditch the carbs. She's amazing. I love Libby. She's a health coach alongside me. A website, ditchthecarbs.com. They have, my children use that. They go onto there and they look at recipes on there and go, Mum, I'm going to cook this. And I'm like, okay, sure. So we get in the kitchen and I love teaching my children to cook, to learn how to manipulate and change recipes. It's really good for them. So Ditch the Carbs is a fantastic place for anybody to start. Children, parents, anybody of any age.
And that actually brings up for me, how do we bring this to our community? We teach our kids. We teach our kids because our kids talk. And I can tell you that our kids talk because my kid knew all about menstruation from about 5, went to kindy and gave the entire class a talk about it. So kids talk.
Yeah.
So if we teach them about nutrition, they're going to teach their friends.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I have a whole heap of teenagers that want to come live with me because I allow them to eat meat and we don't eat many vegetables.
Okay, so we've got the revolution from below happening here, and in time there'll be a revolution from above too, we hope. And you're growing your revolutions. Parents everywhere, good on you. Keep the great work up.
There was a question that just popped up for Pran.
Yep.
Yeah. Pran, how can people find you?
Well, you could. So my practice is out in Castle Hill, Tracy, which is a suburb in Sydney, in the hills area. But I'm quite active on Facebook and Instagram from a social media perspective. So it's just under Dr. Pran Yoganathan, or you could just Google me. It'll come up with links to my website where I tend to do a lot of blogs, and hopefully links to my social media accounts as well.
To come and see you as a practitioner, do we need a referral from our GP?
Yeah, for it to be valid from a Medicare perspective, it'll need to come from the general practitioner.
Okay, that was a question that popped up, so thanks for that.
No problems.
Okay. I'm really keen to go home. It's been I've actually been with them. Sorry. Really good. And we've been very grateful for everybody who's participated on the Q&A groups. I'm reminded that there is a Low Carb Canberra private Facebook group which exists for discussion, sharing recipes, inspiration, personal support. We also have a public Low Carb Canberra page. We've also now got Instagram and Twitter, so we're learning all about social media. Certainly social media is one way that we can let people know and participate in those community conversations. You can find all of us on the group page. The group page is also monitored, so it's a very safe place for people to ask
personal questions. The page, not so much. The group is for, you know, us to help answer, or if it is very personal, you can reach us all through private messenger, or you can send low-carb Canberra, admin@lowcarbcanberra.com.au questions, and we will pass them on to the people that need to.
So I would like to thank all of you for sticking around to the end of the day. I'd like to thank talk at short notice and help make information.
Don't worry, I'm already on for 2021. I've been working it out with Richard, so I have big plans. 2020 can go that way, and 2021 can come in, so I have big plans, so look out.
Okay, everybody, thank you very much for participating, and wishing you lots of yummy fat.
Lots of fat, build your cholesterol, I don't know. Just don't eat real food, people, please.
Enjoy your protein.